there was something happened with my sister. She had a birthday, 26 years old, and she spent it with us, me and a friend of mine. She spent the night with us. That was her best friend. And then she wanted to go home the next day. And when she went home the next day, I took her home. And I was like, I don't feel something's right. It feels wrong. And when I saw that when I got to the house, the door was cracked open. Like, why is the door cracked open? I said, you wait out here. Let me go check the house, see what's going on, what's happening in the house. And I went throughout the house and, as a martial artist, I'm checking everything, waiting for somebody to jump out, and I'm ready to take them out. But nobody was in there. I looked up under beds. I looked in closets up and down throughout things, and even looked because somebody small could hide under a kitchen cabinet. And so I would look under there. I would look in the pantry. Nobody. And so I opened the door and I looked outside the house in the backyard to see if I could see anybody. Saw nobody. Nobody was there. And so I said, let's call the police. I asked my sister, let's call the police. She said, no. I said, well, check and see if anything is stolen. She looked, she checked. She says, it doesn't look like anything is stolen except for a tape. And on this tape, there was somebody, I'm not going to say the name, but there was somebody that threatened her on the tape and was cursing her out on the tape. And she let me hear that the day before her birthday or the day of her birthday. But on the next day, that was the only thing that was stolen. That was the only thing that was missing. And so I said, let's call the police. And she didn't want to call the police. I said, well, why don't you just come on back home? Come on back over to our house and stay with us, because I don't feel right about this. Something's not right. And she insisted, no, I have to go and buy some diapers for Uriel, which is my son now. And but he was my nephew back then. He became my son. And there's a reason for that. And so later, I'm running late for work. I'm like, I'm willing to be late for work. Just come on back over to our house. It's like, no, it's okay. And so I left. And on the way to my job site, I'm not feeling ease with that. I'm not feeling good about it. Something's not right. Something is not right. Me and my sister were so close. And so I get to my work site and I just got to call her. And so I call the house. Back then, all we had was landlines, no cell phones, nothing like that. And so I'm calling. The phone is just ringing, and hangs up. It just, stopped ringing. So I hang up and I dial back, ring, nothing. And then finally, after several times, somebody picks up. I'm like, hi, Jackie. And click, somebody just hang the phone up. And so now I'm like really, I'm scared, I'm nervous. And so I'm trying to call back and now it's busy. The phone is busy, it's not ringing. And so I'm panicking kind of, and so I'm in the warehouse. I go up front into the office area. I'm calling up there, and finally somebody, while I'm constantly calling, another friend that got me that job was like an operator answering phones, and she answered the phone and she said, Kevin, you have a call on line whatever. And so I clicked that line. It was my mother. I wished it could have been my sister, but it was my mother, and she was hysterical. And she told me that my sister was, somebody set her on fire or something happened. She was on fire. And I rushed over to the house. I left. I said, I got immersed, got to go. And I rushed, drove over there, got to the house. It was fire trucks and police. The ambulance has already left. And so I'm like, what hospital? I'm like, where's my sister? Where's my sister? They said they sent her to the med. I rushed to the med, and family is already there. And I'm like trying to find out what's going on, what's happening. And we're there all night, and she's fighting for her life. And they said, we're going to have to cut her fingers off because they burnt so bad. And my mother's like, no, she's not going to live if you cut her fingers off. And I went in there and I looked at my sister. She didn't look nothing like herself. You know, she was a model, and she didn't look nothing like herself. And when I saw her, I just had to rush out of there because I was so angry with myself. I blamed myself. And I just couldn't stand, and I couldn't bear what was going on. And that night, the doctor came in while everybody was waiting and said, my sister passed away. And the way he said it was trying to be as careful as he could on, you know, how he would say it. And when he left, or when he was getting ready to leave, my mother was saying, what does this mean? And I just shouted out, she's dead. And I rushed out of there. And I was so angry, so frustrated. I ran home. I drove home, and I got a knife, and I was getting ready to commit suicide, cut my wrist. And I was so frustrated, sitting in a chair, crying with tears in my eyes, blaming myself. I should have stood up. I should have just forced her, if I had to come. I should have just did this or that. And it's your fault. It's your fault. I was just blaming myself over and over and over again. I was blaming myself with tears in my eyes, just angry. And I was getting ready to take that knife, and then I just said, forget it. And whatever it was, it didn't slice my wrist. I can't explain it. It was a sharp knife. I did it a second time, like this time I'm going to put more pressure. Nothing would happen. No, not one drop of blood would happen. And I couldn't explain it because I was foolish. I was ignorant. I was out of it. So I was like, well, I should and I took that same knife and I got a fruit, and it just cut through that fruit as if it was butter, soft butter. And I couldn't understand it. And so I ended up to where, okay, I know where the drug dealers are. I can just go, snatch their drugs from them, punch them, snatch their drugs, stand there and hope they shoot me where it would kill me. But then God put a person in my mind, somebody that I cared about at the time, that the same person that gave me that helped me get that job that I was working at. And I called her up, and I had to get my composure. I didn't want her to hear me crying because tears were still in my eyes, but I didn't want the sound of my voice to sound like I was crying. And so I had to get myself together, and it took me a while, but finally I did, and I called her. But then when she said, because she knew something was wrong concerning my sister, so she said, Kevin, is your sister all right? And as soon as she said that, it just I was emotional so bad again. I said, she's dead. I was, it sounded like that. And I was going to hang the phone up, but I respect her so much that I couldn't just hang up on her. And so she said, come over here. I want you to come over. I said, I gotta go. And she's like, come over here. Don't just come straight over here. When you hang up the phone, come straight over here. I said, okay. I wasn't gonna go. I was not going to go. I was not planning to go over to her house. And I said, okay, I'll go. And so she said, no, promise me. And she made me promise because she knew that if I make a promise, I'm going to keep it. And so I said, okay, I'm going to come. But I didn't promise. And she said, no, you got to say, I promise. I want you to say the words, I promise, that you're going to come over there. I said, I'm going to come. And she said, no, you got to promise. I want you to say it. Say that you promise. And so I said, okay, I promise. I'll come over. No, I said, okay, I promise. She said, say, I promise that you're going to come over as soon as you hang up the phone. And so then I said, okay, I promise I'm going to come over there as soon as I hang up the phone. But I was saying it so emotional. And so then I knew, okay, I have to keep my promise. So I went over there, and I remember sitting in her driveway for like almost 30 minutes because I couldn't shut it off. I couldn't stop crying. I couldn't get myself together. And so finally I did get myself together, and I was able to knock on her door, and she was able to come in. I was able to go in. But it was something that she said to me that, because I showed her, she was a model. I showed her pictures of my sister. She was a model, but when I was not expecting her to open show me the pages. And when she did the picture of my sister, I just broke down instantly again. I tried to storm out of there. And when I did that, she grabbed a hold of me and she wouldn't let me go. And it was what she said. I don't know how she knew this, but she said, if anything was to happen to you, what's going to happen to your nephew? What's his name? Uriel? I never told her his name. But then by her saying that, it reminded me of a promise that I said to my sister when she asked me, a friend of mine, if anything ever happens to me, promise that you're going to take care of him. And so I remembered that promise. And you know what I said? Well, if I'm going to do that, I'm not going to have anything to do with God. I'm done. I threw my hands up with God. I didn't want anything to do with God. I remember having the Bible, and I took that Bible. It's not the Bible, but I took that Bible, and there was a garbage, and I did like this. I was so angry at God, and I went. And I just couldn't throw it in the garbage. I don't know why I couldn't throw it in the garbage. I know why now, but I didn't know why then. So I just put it somewhere. I think I gave it away to somebody else. And for about 3 years, I was thinking about becoming a Buddhist, go to the Shaolin Temple and learn from them, become a monk, Then I thought about becoming a Muslim, but then they serve God, and I didn't want to have anything to do with God. So I was like, I'm just going to be my own person. Go throughout life, whatever. If anything happens, so it happens. And I wasn't thinking about eternity. I wasn't thinking about if I'm separated from God, where would I go eternally? I was only thinking about how angry and frustrated I was with the Lord. I didn't stop believing that he existed. I knew better. I heard his voice. I could never deny his voice. God had given me events that was going to happen before they happened. And so I heard and I know, so I couldn't, he spoke to me and told me that I was going to lose my sister. I was going to lose my older brother. He told me this. But you know what? 2 years later, I lost my brother also. My oldest brother, who taught me the martial arts. And I said, and it was a violent death also. He was shot. And I was even more angry. I said, if you think, and I wanted to ball my fist up at the Lord, but for some reason, I balled my fist, but I couldn't do it up to him. It's how I felt. But I said, if you think that I'm coming back to you, no way. It'll take a miracle to bring me back to you. You know what? That miracle came. That miracle happened because I heard his voice again when I was 25, going on 26 years old. But I didn't hear it right away. I heard it when I was mid-20s. In the summer, my cousin, who is now a preacher, but he was in the world. He was selling drugs, doing all kinds of stuff. Every other word was a foul mouth came out of his mouth. But my mom was a prophetess, told him, God's going to raise you up as a preacher, and you're going to pastor your own church. And he laughed at her. He said, Auntie Lucille, you crazy. But you know what? God gave him something that changed his mind. And he's still a pastor today. He pastors his own church. But he came to me. And he was younger than me. He was like 20, I think 22 or something like that. I was 25 when he came to me, and he's like, he wasn't a pastor during that time, but he was like a preacher. And so he came to me, he said, God told me to tell you that if you don't give your life back to him, your sister died at the age of 26. 2 years later, your brother died at the age of 26. You are about to turn 26. And if you don't give your life back to him, you're going to die at the age of 26. How do you think I received that? Not good. I was so angry at him. I was so frustrated at him. I said, the audacity of you coming to me. And I wondered if I cursed, which I didn't curse, but if I cursed, I would have cursed him out. But I wanted to punch him. I wanted to hit him. But I had to walk away. But it was what he said. I just couldn't shake it. And I didn't care if I died. I really didn't. I didn't care, but I wasn't thinking about the consequences. I wasn't thinking that there is an eternal consequence of that action. I wasn't thinking that there are repercussions of the decisions that you make in this life. And so I was frustrated. I was angry. I was like, we were like brothers. So I was like, I'm done with that. I'm done with him. And so, but I was so angry. I had a lot of hate in my heart against God. And in my mind, as I was walking away, I was like, it'll take a miracle for me to come back to him. Ain't no way. And I didn't realize that I was actually inviting God to bring a miracle to bring me back to him. Just by thinking and saying it, And believe it or not, that happened that following year. And it was, I believe, my last chance to get it right with God. It was my last chance to make things right with God. But it was my life going downhill. See, sometimes God have to put you into such a state to where you're down. I used to have this thing like, if it wasn't for bad luck, I'll have no luck at all. You know the saying. That was this old saying back then. And then another saying, I'm so far down in the dumps that it can't get no worse than this. But here I was so deep into so much, everything was against me. I had all negative, hardly any positive. Uriel was the only positive thing in my life that I think of. He was the only positive thing. And so I was just so frustrated. And I remember my car getting broken in. My car was, first of all, that car was wrecked by my cousin that came to visit me. And he drove the car without my permission and wrecked it. I didn't have insurance. Then I bought a bike. It got stolen at work. Borrowed a friend's bike. It got stolen. And so then, somehow we got another bike. I don't remember how we got it, but we got another bike. And I don't know if she bought it or I bought it, but we had another bike. But I walked. I after riding that bike to work, and I put it in the corral. Got off work. That bike got stolen. So I had to walk home in the heat. I was frustrated. See the hood hatched up on my car, and I'm like, why is my hood up? Get closer, and the battery's stolen. I'm like, how come everything got to happen to me? I was so angry. I was frustrated. You ever see those guys walking down the street and they're like, there's nobody around? That person was me. Except I was talking to God. Like, but not before this happened. I said, how come everything got to happen? I just shout that. And then I hear this voice say, because you have abandoned me. And I'm like, why would I say abandon? I can't leave myself. I'm right where I am. How can I abandon myself? And I hear the same voice say, no, because you have abandoned me. And so now I'm realizing that's the same voice that told me that my sister would, lose her life and my brother. So I was frustrated and angry all of a sudden again. And I started lashing out at God. I said, if that's really you up there, you're a God that don't care. Yeah, I left you because you're a God that don't love me. You're a God that don't care. You're a God that don't answer prayers. And I remember praying to God before they died when he revealed to me that was going to happen. And I remember maybe a year before that happened, and he revealed that. And you know how you get a notion, and so you kind of ignore it, but you pray over it anyway. You pray about it anyway, and that was me. And then it would happen, a few more times, months after, and finally later on, I hear God's voice, and it's so strong that, wow, this is an urgency. I'm going to lose my sister and brother. I got to pray. And I was praying. I was like, God, Lord, please don't let anything happen to my sister and brother, because they're everything to me. I don't know what I'll do without them. They're everything to me. I can't live without them. I need them in my life. I don't know how I can live without them being in my life. They're everything to me. What did I just do there? I lifted them up more than I lifted up God. I should have said, Lord, you're everything to me. Lord, I can't live without you. I don't know what I would do without you. I need you in my life. You're everything to me. What would I do without you, Lord? I know that you can save your life. I didn't think like that. Instead, I became selfish. If any one of us have to go, let it be me. I don't know what I would do if I lose them. That's what I said to the Lord. And so, in a sense, they became like a God to me. because I put them before the Lord. I didn't give praises. I gave praises to them. I didn't give that to the Lord. And so when you fast forward and then I hear that voice again, and there it is. I'm lashing out at God, and no, I can't come back. And then I'm waiting for it. And I said some things out of anger to God. And I expected him to either strike me dead or something. Didn't hear nothing for several minutes. So I'm like, if you're still up there, are you listening? Prove yourself to me. I don't know why I said that, but I said it. Prove yourself to me. Show me that you love me. Show me that you care for me. Show me that you are willing to come into my life. Change my life from all this negative to positive. And yeah, I'll come back to you. I said that. You know what? When you're talking to God, God will answer. God will show up. God not only showed up, but he showed out, because everything, I remember also that probably like a week after that, a couple of weeks or something, probably something like that, to that effect, because I said my kung fu is at a dead end. I tried to get at the post office, and yet nobody would send me a letter saying, stop applying for this position. You know, we don't want you. You suck. Don't apply no more. But they wouldn't send me even a letter of denying so I could stop applying. And so that was kind of frustrating, because I'm still working at this, these low paying minimum wage jobs, and a little bit above. Back then was minimum wage was $5.25 an hour. And this guy hired me at his paint company working for $5.75 an hour. And yet I was mixing paint out of pigments, all kinds of pigments, making it from, 25 gallons to 2,000 gallons of paint. I was operating a forklift. I was doing all kinds of organizing a warehouse for $5.75. And yet all my friends were getting paid all this money, and wherever they was working, $12 an hour, $15 an hour. And it was embarrassing for me to tell people what I was making an hour. And so everything was just, and the pigments, the paint pigments, they only give you a mask, no respirator. And between that company and the company prior that I was mixing chemicals for, now they were paying me good, but I lost that job. I got sick, and because I kept getting sick, I lost that good paying job, and I had to go back to working at McDonald's. Then a friend wanted to hire me. A friend wanted to hire me for $5.75 an hour, doing all that work. You're a good friend, you're going to pay me what the job is worth. So, but I sucked it up, because at least I wasn't working at McDonald's. And so I ended up hearing this voice, and I was like, okay. And then about a week later, God started, and I didn't know it was God, but God started. He sent me a Kung Fu master from Chicago to a Kung Fu school that I was teaching out of, but at the same time could not learn anything else. I was frustrated that I couldn't learn anything else. Everybody looked at me as the head instructor, but I wasn't. They looked at me being the best, but I was at that. But it was frustrating for me. And he sent me this master who really caused me to want to go up to Chicago and train, because he befriended me and he spent a lot of time teaching me things that, wow, just it's amazing, that I wanted to train under him, but I couldn't because I stayed in Memphis. And so then when he left, after a week later, I thought the Lord was teasing me. And I said, why show me something I can't have? I was angry. I thought, man, the Lord is just tormenting me. And so he said, weigh your life on the scale. I'm hearing his voice. On a scale of positive being the right hand or negative. If your positive outweigh your negative, stay in Memphis. But if your negative outweigh your positive, move to Chicago. I knew that was the Lord, because I didn't have that kind of wisdom back then. I didn't think like that. And so I started trying to name things on my right hand, and instantly Uriel was the number one. It took me a while to come up with the second one, because it was positive things in my life. And so then I was like, well, let me come back to that one, negative. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, I'm supposed to move to Chicago. Who am I going to stay with? And so I think about, okay, me and my stepmother, we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things, and we didn't have that great connection with one another. So maybe if I talk to my father, my little brother, maybe they can convince her to allow me to stay with them. So I ended up calling her, and remember, we had just only the touch tone phones back then, landlines. And so I called, and guess who answers the phone? My stepmother. And so but the amazing thing was, it was as if she was expecting my call almost. It was strange. And the conversation was going so well that she asked, so when are you going to come visit us? I was like, funny you mentioned that. And the rest is history. I ended up moving to Chicago, and it was one thing positive behind the other one that was like back to back that was happening. Ultimately, my stepmom says, son, you got a job at the post office. I'm like, huh? How do I have a job at the post office? I didn't apply here. And how would they know I'm in Chicago? I applied in Memphis. She said, I know, but I have a friend that works at the post office. He's over the hiring. And she says, you have the job if you go. She said, now there's going to be a line waiting, thousands of people to get in to that one door. Don't wait in line, go straight in and talk to Miss So-and-so. I don't remember her name. So I get down to the office, and if you see the post office in Chicago, downtown, huge buildings. But I see these long lines going like this to this one door. And so I'm like, if I just go straight in, these people are going to be angry, and they're going to probably want to fight me. So I walk, if this was a building, right, the size of an ant or something, and so I walked all the way to the end, and when I looked that way, the line was all the way back. And I was like, forget that, I'm not waiting in line. I'm going to go in. So I'm trying to think, how can I do this? The next employee go in, I'm going in with him. And that's what was happening. The employee was going in. I went in with them, went straight in the office, asked for Miss So-and-so. They went to get her, and she came up front. Because I told her who I was. And she came up front. She said, you're Catherine Miller's son? I said, yes, ma'am. Come on back here. Went back there. She said, I just need you to fill out this. My stepmom knew. She still had my social security number. She filled out everything for me. The only thing I had to do was sign a date. That was it. And she said, okay, take this slip up to the 6th floor. Here's your badge. Welcome to the post office. 15 minutes in and out. I had a job, the quickest job I ever had. And so So I was amazed by that. And ultimately, I befriended somebody that was there who wanted me to, this was close to a year after being with my parents, and this person wanted me to room with another guy. They needed one more for this place that was 5 minutes walking distance from the beach. And so I'm like, they asked me, do you want to, go have one to rent with us? I said, yeah, I'm in. And sure enough, everything was working great. And I remember being on the beach and watching the sunset. Now it's night and the waves are going beautifully, wind just perfect, serene. And I'm hearing people, it's not that many people, but I'm hearing people and they seem like they're saying the same thing. And I look up, everybody's looking up. Look up. They're looking up. I'm like, what are they looking up? So I look up. I see lightning streaks going across horizontal, the sky. And I'm like, let's get ready to storm. So I look for the clouds to see which way the storm is coming in. See no clouds. All I see is stars up in the sky. Not one trace of a cloud as far as the eye could see. I'm like, how is this possible? How is this happening? And as soon as I ask that question, I hear the Lord's voice again saying, I'm doing this for you. Remember your promise that you made me. Instantly, I see as if a show started happening. It's like better than watching fireworks without thunder. But it was like just everywhere. And I'm so amazed on how this is happening. Obviously, I wasn't the only one seeing it. Everybody was there, and I wasn't dreaming. This was actually happening. I was seeing this. And then all of a sudden it stopped. And then I realized I got to give my life back to God. I have to repent. I got to learn how to pray again. Because I forgot, it had been so long, I forgot how to pray. And so I remember getting on my knees that night, and I remember saying, I don't know how to pray to you. I said, just talk to me. Just talk to me. And so I did that, and my life changed. I saw everything that the Lord promised me that was going to happen, that I said, you prove yourself. He went above and beyond and made it happen for me. And he took away all of my doubts. And I learned to trust in the Lord. The Holy Bible says, lean not on your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. He shall make your path straight. And I learned in that moment that, wow, God loves me. God really, truly cares for me. And I watched all throughout my life after that, things that I couldn't see. I saw God change. God did it for me. And I know that if God would do it for me, he would do it for anybody. And so when we are looking at our situation, our trials, our tribulations, our tests, if you will, we have to understand that it doesn't stop right there. It doesn't have to stop right there at your situation. God is bigger than our situation. God is able to do all things. What is impossible for us is possible with the Lord. And so when we are believing in something, then we have to look at, several people knew about our son. He went through a lot of stuff. He almost lost his life. He did lose it twice at birth. And God did a miracle right then and there. As soon as I saw what was happening, and the midwife couldn't bring him back, Lord brought me out of my shock, and I touched him. And I said, Lord Jesus, help him. And on the video, you could see life shot into his body instantly. And the Lord put us through test after test with him. He was in the hospital, had seizures in the hospital. And the doctors were saying he's going to be in there for 2-3 months. I said, I was thinking it was going to be like 2 or 3 days. You said 2 or 3 months, a week at most. They said, he's in bad shape, they basically were saying. And realistically, it's going to take that long. But you know what? Me and my wife stood strong on the Lord. And he said, ask and you shall receive. Seek and you shall find. Knocking the door should be open for everybody who asks will receive. And those who seek will find, those who would knock, he would open doors for us. And so when we move by faith, that's how God moves. He moves by our faith. If we have faith, Jesus said, all you needed, faith is like the size of a mustard seed. And if you have that amount of, that little bit of faith, that's all it takes. And so we knew that we had at least that much faith. And we said, Lord, we put them in your hands. Make dumbfound these doctors. And we didn't understand what dumbfound looked like until we saw God do that miracle with our son. And he was out of there. I'm giving you a very short version of that because I'm about to close out. But we saw he was out of that hospital within less than a week. And we saw God's hand at work, and the doctors couldn't understand it.